about 4 p.m. Now, back to the stories that we have for you here on KTN Business today. And Mary Wangari Wamae is a prominent figure that has shaped the success of Equity Bank for a very long time. Now, she takes her retirement after about 20 years of making big decisions in one of Kenya's biggest banks as an executive director. It has been said that she was being groomed to take over the corner office as the bank's CEO, but now she chats with KTN's Esther Diana about navigating the banking industry and if indeed she was in the running for the corner office. Take a look.
Thank you so much for taking your time to speak to us and hosting us today for this interview. And I understand that it's been 2 weeks since you took your retirement from one of Kenya's biggest banks, Equity Group. So then I'd like to understand, sometime back we spoke and you told me that typically your day started at around 5 and ended somewhere between 6 to 8 p.m. So how are you adjusting to this new normal?
Okay, yeah, thank you so much. I retired like now it's 2 weeks ago. From 1st of July, I did not report to Equity. So I used to wake up when I was working at 4:45 a.m. Now, nothing has changed. I'm still waking up at 5 a.m. So what I'm doing is I either do a walk or I have a static bike here in the morning, and then I take breakfast. I have a few meetings that are a spillover because I had a few appointments that I could not do when I was on a regular schedule. So my days have been actually quite occupied with a few meetings. But what I've done is now I'm starting the meetings at 8 or 9. Previously, I would be in the office by 6:30 or some minutes to 7. So I've gained 1 hour.
20 years in the banking halls. And then word has been going around that you were being groomed to take over as Equity Group's chief executive. What happened to those plans now that you've retired, if at all they were true?
I think now we get into the issue of succession, because for me, succession planning is a critical part of the business. Succession planning is not about having an individual to succeed another individual. So other than looking at having one individual who might succeed the incumbent, Equity said, we want to create a very strong bench of leaders who are capable of taking over when the time comes or when circumstances demand. And I believe that I was part of that team, which is very strong. So it was possible I could have been, if I was there, but it could also have been somebody else because we have a bench and there are many people who the board would decide who is the right person to take over. And if the board decides that among the people who are there at that time, we don't believe we have the right person, it will also be okay for the board to look out there for the successor. So I think that is the view. But of course, you know, the market, they take a view and it is also okay based on how they see people growing and doing things and all that. But I think that would be the general view about succession, which I also personally subscribe to. Yeah, not really an individual.
So do you confirm that indeed you are on the run-up to become the chief executive?
What I can confirm is I was in the bench together with others who could take over from the CEO, Dr. Mwangi.
To this end, you knew a time like this would come. So how did you plan for retirement and what can you tell someone about planning for retirement?
There are many aspects to that because planning to retirement is a multiple-pronged issue. And the first one is, which I alluded to earlier, is the creating my own succession. By the time now this year came and I was feeling I'm ready to go, none of those dockets that I felt the person who has taken over is not ready to run the dockets on their own. So that is one part of succession, because it would be unfortunate if you have taken the time to build the business and then the day you depart, there are gaps, who is managing the boards, who is doing the company secretarial role, managing the AGMs, managing the compliance of the bank, who is doing the regional role. So preparation. For me, the other preparation was actually, I have been in a very busy role, very, very engaging. Now, I cannot leave the bank and then come here and for a whole 24 hours, I have no idea what I'm going to do. I think that is what kills many people, because they've been very busy and then suddenly they don't know. I mean, it's 5 a.m., you've woken up, you have no plan for the day, and you have no idea what to do. Many people are not able to adjust to that if you have not prepared. On day one of your retirement, how are you going to positively and productively engage yourself? Because there's nothing as harmful as boredom after you have been used to being active and productive. So that is the second part. Now, the third part, of course, is looking at your financial preparedness.
Can you speak to us about challenges and also lessons you've picked working for Kenya's biggest bank?
One of the lessons that I would say I've taken away is, and which I would like to share and hope many people will also pick, is the need for selfless commitment to a cause. Because equity has been about a service. It's been about supporting the customers to realize their dreams. So out of that, one thing I learned is that it is okay to make money, but actually you do better when you do that while making a difference or making an impact to the people. And that is why you saw that one of the strongest arm of the bank was the social engine, as we used to call it, through the group foundation. So that was probably one of my biggest lessons, and the board emphasizing that whatever undertaking you are doing on the commercial side, you also have to think about how that then trickles down to the less fortunate people. I think there also other lesson has been the board emphasizing on innovation as a driver of the business. And this becomes extremely important in a market that is moving very fast. The trends are changing, the demographics are changing, customer trends are changing, the preferences are changing. So unless you're able to innovate and figure out what your customers want today, not what they wanted yesterday, you have to look at what they want today. When you sit in a position of responsibility, like I did for several years, one of the things that you have to be aware is that whatever decision you make has a big impact on yourself, on the customers you're serving, on the employees that you work with, and on the community. So some of the decisions have to be very difficult decisions, depending on what you're dealing with.
What can you tell female or other women business leaders who are eyeing the C-suite offices, and what mistakes should they avoid when it comes to corporate governance?
The big advice I'll give to the women leaders, whether they are already there or whether they are aspiring and working very hard towards it, is first of all, they should not shy away from leadership, because in the course of my work, I've realized that some of us shy away and say, that's a man's job. But I have seen women who have succeeded because they were daring enough to go for it. Yeah, we should not expect that anything comes or leadership positions come on a silver platter. They do not. They come as a result of very hard work, commitment, sacrifice, and the ability to decipher and to understand what is happening around us scanning the environment, and then making the decisions that we need to make accordingly, some of which will actually require us to sacrifice something.
So then, having been in the banking industry for so long, you've encountered a lot of borrowers. So then, what are some of the characteristics of Kenya's borrowers, and which one stood out for you the most?
I would say that net, most of the borrowers are genuine borrowers who put their money into genuine undertakings. Most of them, maybe more than 90%. There will be that small percentage who take the money for all the wrong reasons, and that is typical in any society, whether in Kenya or outside, and those are the ones then who become problematic borrowers to the banks or other financial institutions, or even the digital lenders now.
Working for the bank, again, in the board, holding a very powerful position, how were you perceived as a female leader in the banking industry, which for a long time has been assumed to be male-dominated?
You know what I realized? Finally, I only realized this after I left. They used to call me the Iron Lady. I don't know why. I didn't know there was one in Kenya. I knew the one in the UK. I think there are two things here. You know, I talked about being the effective leader. Whether you're a man or a woman, you have to be an effective leader. And effectiveness in a leader will also call for you to be very strict. And you have to set your expectations accordingly. People need to understand the minimum requirements. So like for me, at least everybody knew that if you bring a document to me, it had better be okay. You have gone through it, error-free. If it has an error, I will see it from there, from very far. So you have to be strict, but with compassion.
As we conclude, what's next for you? What are you going to do after retirement? Where are we likely to see you?
I want to really do a bit more mentorship, and that is my way of giving back to the society and the community, because first of all, I believe that I am where I am because the community supported me. The community supported my education. I predominantly, partly went to school on a scholarship and bursaries. But I want to take a little bit of time to really decide, think about like what my next occupation will be. Now I have the time to really think about it and plan, but I've not concretized the plan yet. The only thing I know is mentorship anytime. That one I'm doing. I've even gone to TikTok because I want to teach more. And I realize that's where the population is. So many people cannot believe that I'm on TikTok, but it's a channel with a lot of velocity. So, and of course, all the other channels, I do a lot of posts on LinkedIn.
Typically, a lot of people, when they retire, people talk about going up country, I don't know, taking care of my garden, taking care of my animals and stuff like that. But
yes,
on the other side, you're still here with us in the city.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering, are we ever going to see you again in the banking halls, or other than withdrawing money, are we ever going to see you in the banking halls? And also, what are some of the things you're doing at a personal level? Hobbies and stuff like that.
Oh, okay. By the way, now, for me, farming, I have a small farm in Nyeri, where I come from. So for me, farming is a hobby and good therapy. Like when the city stresses me so much, what I do, I take a road trip to the farm in Nyeri. It's about 2 hours drive. And the drive is good for me. And by the time I get there, my farm has, I call it a mixed grill. I would like to sort of keep my old networks, because you see now I will not meet them in my bank activities. I'm no longer there. but they'll be in the clubs and all that, and those are the external activities. So I'm following more the club activities. Just first of all to keep myself fit and healthy, but also to continue creating new networks, preserving the old networks. So that's one thing that I'm focusing. It's on my plan right now. And then I have a long bucket list, including climbing Mount Kilimanjaro. Sijui kama nitaweza. But I always say the impossible is possible. Yeah, but I think you just build a positive attitude towards life and live every day at a time and be grateful for what is working.
Thank you so much for taking your time. We are keen to see what the future holds for you, and congratulations on your retirement.
Thank you so much for inviting me and having me here, and thank you so much for your support.
All right, amazing, amazing. We've had an amazing conversation with Mary Wangari, who is a retired banker, an author, and just 3 weeks ago, she was an executive director for Equity Bank. And we've spoken about debt management, saving for rainy days, and basically planning for the future, or rather mapping out the future consciously. So my name is Esther Diana for KTN News in Karen, Nairobi.
Interesting story, right? Then, of course, much more from that interview coming up in subsequent bulletins. The first interview there since the retirement by Ms. Wamae. Well, on that note, we want to bring this to a close, but remind you to stay here with us on KTN News as we are waiting that announcement from State House coming up in subsequent bulletins in just a few minutes. But from us here in studio, it is Kwaheria Kunana. Enjoy the rest of your viewing today and going ahead into the weekend. We'll see you Monday at the same time. My name is Peter Akaba. Adios.